We have struggles. We have hurts, disappointments. It seems often in life we're inundated with negativity. And especially if we're religious, we try to keep up that good face. How you doing today, sister? I'm blessed. How you doing today, brother? I'm blessed. Knowing good and well, there are struggles. Now, I am one that believes, even as I faith walk, when I have an illness and I'm believing to be well, or I have an injury that I'm expecting to be well, I don't need to be telling everybody about it because I'm trying to keep a positive mindset. So I understand that aspect of not wanting to focus on the negative. Okay, but there's another side of it, is to simply, I don't want to deny the reality of truth. Okay. So I'm not going to, so of course we're all blessed in that sense, but if I'm going through it, I'm going through it. Now I may not want to share it, but that is the reality that I have to keep in mind, okay? Faith isn't just not facing the truth, okay? Faith is really believing that thing that we don't see that is going to be well, okay? And so there is a particular line between the two that we have to remain aware of. That faith is one thing, denying truth is something else, okay? Because there are some things that we pray for, that we desire for, that just aren't going to happen, okay? And I was speaking to a woman, last night. She was telling me about her friend whose mother passed away. And she can't believe it, because she had prayed and prayed and expected that God was going to answer her prayer. And the woman died, and she was like, well, I thought God answered prayers, And so I asked my friend, I said, well, does your friend have children? And she said, yes. And does she love her children? She said, yes. I asked, does she give her children everything that they ask for? She said, of course not. Well, that's the answer. There are battles that cannot be won. And so what you do is you focus on the battles that you can win. Those are the battles you fight. You recognize the battles that you don't have the ability or the capacity or even the control to actually make happen, to win. So you don't fight those battles. You accept those losses for the moment. And then you might study, you might pray, you might meditate, you might consider, contemplate, formulate a plan, and when you're ready, attack again, okay, when you can win. And so we're going to talk about some things today. Sometimes it's very difficult, with this program. This program is called Another Perspective, and the purpose of Another Perspective is to get us to understand another perspective, because we already believe what we believe. But, having been raised in the traditional church, sometimes it is uncomfortable for me to try to express certain ideas or points of view, because they seem to stand up in the face against, traditional Christianity, God, Jesus, and all. But that's not really the case. I've been in this thing for quite some time. I was raised in the Christian, in the Pentecostal church, and after my atheistic stint for 10 years, I came back, and I've been in this now for almost 30 years. Since I was 28, and I'll be 58 this year. And I've been a minister for many of those years, for over 20 of those years. And really studying and really seeking. And as many of you know, I did a lot of 17 years, with the juvenile detention center, speaking to young people. And when you deal with young people that aren't really, affiliated with the church, they're not really in the church, or maybe have rejected the church for one reason or another, even peer pressure and all, they're going to have questions, real questions to ask you. And it's those questions, when they're honestly addressed, that are going to begin to make you, the minister, the believer that's been a believer for all your life, to begin to think. Because there are certain pat answers that we can just respond to and say, look at your neighbor and say this, or look at your neighbor and say that. Or a minister can speak things in his own church or in his own denomination, and everybody's going to say amen. But when you step outside those walls, you can't just use those pat answers because they're going to be challenged. And that's what we need. See, we don't have those challenges in the body of believers. Really, we don't have those challenges in church or even in our denominations. It's simply for the fact that we have these denominations. Because there are certain things that the group that we fellowship with, that we interact with daily, we all believe the same thing, okay? But that's no challenge, and when there's no challenge, there's no growth. Sort of like working out, unless you challenge the muscles you have, unless you deplete the muscles you have, you're not going to build new ones. It's sort of like the whole idea, even in the world, this is one of the issues I think that we have with the educated world versus the believers, versus the churches, is that the churches are stuck in like a 2,000-year-old mindset of what truth is, okay? But see, what you have in the institutions, in the educational places of learning, are challenges to thought. You have a thesis, then you have an antithesis, and then you formulate a new thesis. So constantly being challenged, constantly being challenged. But the problem we have in our religions is that there is no challenge. And so we just stay in the same place. We sort of stagnate. Why are you standing here gazing at what once was? Because this is not what it is today. But we don't know that, because we're the same place that we've always been. And so there is no growth. There is no challenge. And I think that's why the world, sometimes the educated world, shakes their head at us. Because when I'm trying to tell this man that there were no dinosaurs, or when I try to tell this man that the earth is only 6,000 years old, or that there's no global warming because man can't affect something that God has created, and they just shake their heads. And I think this is another reason why we have so many people that have sort of rejected the church, rejected God, rejected spirituality, but in reality they really haven't rejected God. They really haven't rejected spirituality. They've just rejected those which feel they are representatives of God and spirituality. And so everyone is spiritual. And this is the difficulty that I have in presenting some of these things, because I know that the audience that I'm speaking to oftentimes are going to shut down as soon as they begin to listen. This is to consider that the position that everybody on this planet is well in the eyes of God. The desire of God is simply that we get ourselves well, that we love each other, that we love our neighbors, and that we help each other get well. I have this strength, but I have this weakness. You have a strength in my area of weakness, and I have a strength in your area of weakness. We can help each other. And if we would just get together and realize that, we could begin to help each other instead of fighting and killing each other. We all are of the same source. And I believe this is where what our issue is why we can't find any help, we can't find any relief, because we're stuck in these religions that aren't really satisfying the true needs that we have. The Bible says in the book of Matthew, the 7th chapter, the 7th verse, that if you ask, it shall be given you, and you seek, and you'll find, knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receives, and he that seeks finds, and to him that knocks it shall be open. What man is there of you whom, if his son ask bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good gifts to them that ask him? It says for everyone that asks. See, I think as religious folks, we need to stop making this thing so exclusive. And begin to realize that this is for the entire world, that for everyone. And we've cloistered ourselves into this little room, and determined that we're the only ones well and nobody else is. And what I'm suggesting today is, as we consider the condition of our own hearts, the condition of our own minds, the condition of the situations that we live in daily, often we are not well. We are not content. We are not happy, but we're just putting forth this good face, this religious face, like, I'm blessed, I'm blessed, when anyone asks you how you are, but it's not altogether true. We're not really feeling that blessed. I mean, yeah, we are blessed, but according to John 3:16, the entire world was blessed. And according to that day, when the angels, the Christmas story, that good peace and goodwill on earth toward all men. So yes, we are blessed. Humanity is blessed, but we need to find a way to experience that blessing. And again, it's very difficult because my message is to all human beings. It's not to focus on the areas where we are different. This man calls himself a Muslim. This man calls himself a Jew. This man calls himself a Christian. This man calls himself a Buddhist. We have a whole myriad of religions, of belief systems and all. What I'm suggesting is those are the things that we have created to sort of justify, or sort of give us direction and instruction and sort of a structure in what it is that we're trying to do and be. What I'm suggesting today, those structure, just in the word itself, structure, these are the things that have divided us. We need to begin to tear down those structures, tear down those walls, tear down all these things that we have created, and recognize the similarity within us. And that similarity within us is that spiritual connection that we have to the source of all creation. You want to call God, he wants to call Yahweh, this person wants to call Allah, but it is whatever we call the source. The one thing we have to come to terms with and realize in all logic and reality is that whatever the source, we all emanate from that same source as human beings, okay? What I'm saying is that's the key right there, and that's the key that we're missing. Is the connection that we have to that source of our creation. And what I'm suggesting, and that's where we kind of whittle it down all the way to that lowest common denominator, that factor that we all have in common, is that we can all agree on, is that we all emanate from the same source. Let's realize that and build from there. See, the problem today is that we are born into religions. We are born into Islam. We are born into Christianity. We are born into Judaism. We're born into families that are already embracing this thing. So there is no choice. There is no thought. This is just what you are. But we need to whittle all that away and go back to the beginning and begin to work our way this way. So when you find out where we are similar, where we are all related, where we are all of the same source, this is where we build from. And that first step is to recognize that you are my brother, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you look like, no matter what you believe, we are related, okay? And I think this is where Jesus was at when he was telling folks, love God with all your heart, that's the source of all creation. Of course, Jesus, wasn't speaking English, so he didn't say the word God. He probably said Eli, but Aramaic for God. But just realize that Jesus was saying to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. And who is my neighbor? And Jesus even gives the analogy of that Good Samaritan when answering that question, where this Good Samaritan, a Samaritan who was hated by the Jews, helped this Jew. He came to the aid of a man who hated him, and Jesus says, be like that man. So when Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, when challenged, he gave the most extreme example, so there could be no question. You love, see, we want to say, well, love my neighbor. That's my next door neighbor. I love Bob. I love Joe. He's my friend and all that. That's easy to do. No, but Jesus gave an analogy of an individual who helped a man who hated him. So it transcended beyond what we would call a neighbor to recognize that if you have to tend to the needs of a person who even hates you, everybody else is somewhere in between on that spectrum, okay? So Jesus was recognizing that we all come from the same source. Love that source. Recognize that source. And love your brothers and sisters that emanated from that source. That's every human being on that planet. And that's what the religions have missed. And see, if you just build up from there, you have a whole different frame of reference, a whole different understanding of what the good news is. The good news is to tell people who don't, because basically what we have on this planet is people are struggling. People are suffering. People are dying. All kinds of negativities, all kinds of issues. That's just the reality of life, it seems. But why isn't the reality of life that so many people are struggling, so many people are suffering, so many people are sad and heartbroken? Because of the ills, the evils that we have in the hearts of men. Somewhere in everyone's suffering, somewhere in everyone's ill, if you trace back that line far enough, and usually you don't have to go that far, there was another individual that is causing that pain. Whether it's an intentional, affliction on an individual, or a series of decisions that are bringing heartache and heartbreak, selfish decisions that are having an effect on other folks, within their influence. So I'm suggesting is basically just about all the struggles, all the negativities that we have, that we experience, are a result of other people that are just not getting it, not understanding their relationship to all other human beings. I'm telling you, if we found a way to appreciate and embrace that source of our creation, and that would have to be the realizing that we have all emanated from the same source, and in that Jesus said, second only to that is loving your neighbor as yourself. That's realizing the relationship that we have. If we truly love the source of creation, if we truly love God, and we truly loved our neighbor, our fellow human being, as we loved ourselves, 98% of the suffering on this planet would be eliminated.